Hello, everyone. I would like to welcome you all to our event. At this point, and before we move any forward, we would like to remind you once again that the webinar is being recorded. We do this in order to save all the reflections and the things that we're going to learn today. And in this way, we will be able to share the recording later on and benefit from it at your own time. The recording will become available to you in the following days after the end of the webinar. And as you may have noticed, the cameras and microphones have been disabled. We did this in order to protect your data for your own privacy. However, we do encourage our participants to share their reflections and interact with one another using the chat function. You can use the chat by clicking on this icon here, which is probably going to be at the top side of your Teams panel, if I'm not mistaken. So please go ahead, use the chat box and ask questions, share reflections. We'll do everything we can to address everything that you put in there. So great. By this point, we have most of our participants connected. So allow me to introduce myself properly. My name is Nikolaos Tezas, and on behalf of the NBS EduWORLD team, would like to welcome you to this webinar. How do nature-based solutions fit into formal education? This is going to be a 1-hour session, and hopefully by the end of it, we'll have a lot of ways in order to do so, in order to take NBS and bring it closer into formal education. My colleague Rocio is also attending with us today. If you have any technical difficulty, please don't hesitate to write something for us in the chat, and we'll try to address it as soon as possible. And of course, this webinar wouldn't be the same without our experts. So I would like to thank you also, Thaya and Connor, for being here with us. And honestly, we're looking very forward to hearing more about your experience with NBS and formal education. I would also like to say that this webinar is powered by the NBS EduWORLD project, which is funded by the European Union. And it's also part of the NBS EduWORLD MOOC. And the title is Exploring Nature-Based Solutions in Your Classroom and Beyond. But more about that in a while. If you have any question, don't hesitate to ask. I will also have my mind and my eyes on the chat for this reason. And our first task for you today is to click on the link that you see right over here or scan the barcode and give us your details. And in this way, we'll be able to prove that you actually participated in the event. This is actually very important, so I will give you a few minutes to do so. Just click on the link or scan the barcode, and it only takes a few minutes to do so. Enough, but don't worry, in case you need more time, you can continue filling in your details as we go on, and we will also share the link throughout the presentation. So thank you for this. And before we really dive into it, we also wanted to give you an overview of what kind of discussions we'll have today. So regarding our agenda, we already had some welcoming remarks. We'll move closer. We will move on to discuss a little bit more about the concept of NBS and the NBS EduWORLD project. We'll focus on how to bring NBS into formal education. And for this, we will talk about resources, tools, and opportunities to promote NBS. And right after that, we'll pass the floor to our experts. And with this, we will learn more about the whole school approach, the NBS Living Labs, as well as NBS in higher education. And finally, we will have some closing remarks and wish you all the best with your NBS practices. So just a small note about what are NBS, what is it that we are talking about. The European Commission has put a lot of information regarding NBS, and there is also a very comprehensive definition. You can access it by clicking on this link over here. But in order to break it down, we can say that we are using NBS when we are observing nature and see how nature itself is dealing with a lot of problems and other social challenges. And when we're considering the local context and available and sustainable and cost-effective resources when it comes to addressing this kind of problems, when we consider the various systems that are interacting and they're surrounding the problem, and then we take all of these kind of reflections and we're proposing actions that restore the environment, and at the same time we protect nature and people. So take your time with the definition and don't hesitate to go through all the materials that the European Commission has put in place. Just access it by clicking on this link over here, as we said before. One of the main questions here is why should we connect NBS with formal education? And what we could say here is that by doing so, we do respond to global initiatives. The European Union has, and not only the European Union, there are also other intergovernmental bodies that are always raising awareness on environmental issues, and they're searching for solutions, and they're proposing they're putting in place a lot of proposals for this. So by bringing NBS education, we're actually also participating in this kind of initiatives. Then there is the fact that by bringing NBS into formal education, we're also kind of responding to youth demands. And there is an ongoing interest and ongoing results that point out that youth there is an ongoing an increase in concern when it comes to young people concerning sustainability and climate change. And of course, there is also the fact that by doing so, we respond to social and environmental needs. And what we mean by this is that NBS or green skills are going to be on demand more and more in the future. And by preparing students as future citizens, these people are going to be more ready to adjust to the society and make a change. And that's also what lies behind the NBS EduWorld project. So in a nutshell, we should say that NBS EduWorld is a 3-year Horizon Europe project funded by the European Commission and coordinated by European Schoolnet. There are 16 partners in this project from all around Europe and actually 13 countries. Its main goal is to create awareness when it comes to NBS, then create a community for NBS where a lot of professionals can come together, work and promote NBS itself, and for sure to ensure easy and free access to a lot of NBS knowledge and resources. But more about that in a little while. Once again, if you have any question, don't hesitate to ask. That's what we're here for. Okay. Moving on. And that's where we'll start talking about the how. How can we bring NBS into education? We do want to bring your attention to the Green Competence Framework. You can access it by clicking on the link over here or scanning the barcode. And what's important here is to say that the framework created by the European Commission, it identifies a set of green, let's say, skills that are needed in order to help learners and future citizens to develop green knowledge, and of course to help them already and help them promote ways to think, plan, and act towards a more sustainable future. Now, you can read this document. It's very comprehensive, and by doing so, you are already gaining inspiration about what is there to do when it comes to preparing them towards this direction. We wouldn't have this webinar if it wouldn't be for the chance that we have to share resources, and the NBS EduWorld has created or put in place a lot of them. So do browse through the NBS Edu directory and the NBS Edu Hub. By doing so, you'll be able to gather a lot of information about. There are reports there, tools, and a lot of guidance. And you can do it by clicking on the links here or scanning the barcode. And when it comes to the NBS Edu Hub, we should say that it's actually a place that it provides visitors connections to other well-established online platforms. So that's also very important to see what kind of NBS initiatives are there throughout the world. When you click on the links and you start exploring the platforms, you'll see that you will be able to kind of filter the resources based on age group, the educational setting. So go ahead and adjust your search based on your needs. Something else I would like to bring your attention to, and that's also based on our experience, something of great importance for teachers and educators. It's of course, the NBS learning scenarios. Um, so in collaboration with Scientix, the science education community in Europe, the NBS EduWORLD has inspired teachers and educators throughout Europe and beyond to actually create NBS learning scenarios. And what we mean by a learning scenario is basically a document where you will find a lot of a set actually of educational activities. It's connected to a specific topic, and there you'll have a lot of objectives, a lot of outcomes, and a lot of suggestions on how actually can I teach NBS? What kind of ideas can I benefit from? So do scan the barcode here or click on the link that is provided. You'll go to Scientix repository. Make sure to hit the tab that says teaching information, and from there you'll be able to browse through all the already created learning scenarios. Something else that is important, because we do know that there are a lot of teachers and educators out there that they're just beginning their NBS journey, so they might be lacking the confidence or practical advice on how to do it. The NBS EduWorld has created the guidelines for NBS activities. It's specifically for let's say starters when it comes to NBS, but anyone, no matter their experience, can benefit by reading it. The guidelines provide a step-by-step framework for understanding NBS and then implementing them. And for sure, there are also a lot of hands-on activities and practical advice there. Um, you can access it by, once again, clicking on the link or scanning the barcode. You'll see them everywhere in the presentation. And of course, another thing you can do to bring NBS into education is to focus on yourselves and on your own professional development. So given the chance, and given that you are exploring this question, how can I bring NBS into education? Registering the MOOC, it's actually a great opportunity. The webinar is part of this MOOC, but the course itself has a lot more to offer. It is running from the 13th of January, so it's already launched, until the 19th of February 2025. That's approximately 5.5 weeks. Um, so even if you haven't registered, even if you haven't done it so, just go ahead and as long as you complete all the activities that we have put in place, you will be able, by the end of it, to apply for a certificate. The content itself, it is also going to be available to you after the MOOC ends, but it's going to be in archive format. That means that you can still go through this and benefit from what it has to offer, but you will not be able to participate into discussions and receive a certificate. Um, no, now why is it important? Why is this course important for teachers and educators? What we're trying to do with this MOOC is to provide the opportunity for our participants to familiarize with a range of tools, resources, and even frameworks and methods about NBS. We do provide the opportunity to them to explore already created NBS learning scenarios and learn from other teachers, but also we guide them to create their own learning scenario. And there are also a lot of networking opportunities, a lot of discussions are taking place, and also live events. So make sure to register if you're interested and you haven't done it so far. And if you are registered, go ahead and benefit from the last two and modules that are going to be announced soon. And coming to this stage, we wanted to talk about the STEM Discovering Campaign, the 2025 STEM Discovering Campaign is about to begin. It is running from February 1st until April 30th, and most activities are taking place around the end of April. But what is it? Basically, the SDCs are Scientix's way of celebrating and promoting STEM education. So what we do is we're inviting teachers, educators, and other professionals from all around Europe and beyond to participate and provide and show to the world their activity when it comes to STEM education. This year, STEM Discovering Campaign is co-organized by Scientix and NBS EduWORLD project. And by participating, teachers and educators will have the opportunity to benefit from awards, workshops, prizes, and other opportunities to share knowledge and benefit at the same time. Particularly this year, there's going to be an NBS EduWORLD award. So there's going to be an award that's going to be powered by NBS EduWORLD. So if you have in mind any NBS approach or any NBS activity, or you are a participant and by the end of the MOOC you will have already created something, don't hesitate to take part in the SDC. It's a great opportunity to celebrate education. You can learn more about the SDC by clicking on the barcode or the link that we have inserted in the icon here. If there are any questions, as I said, please go ahead. Write us something in the chat. But in the meantime, I would like to give the floor to Thaya so we can learn something more about the whole school approach and the NBS Living Labs. So thank you, Thaya.
Thank you, Nikolaos. Hello. Nikolaos presented very nice the overall objectives of the NBS EduWORLD project as well as the framework. Now I'm here to present you how you can bring nature-based solutions to your schools and transform them into NBS Living Labs following a whole school approach. I'm Thalia Tsaknia. I'm a physicist and member of the Research and Development Department of Ελληνογερμανική Αγωγή. My work focuses on teacher upskilling and training, curriculum development and instructional design. For many years, I worked as a science teacher, contributing to different projects related to learning approaches and in science education, as well as in the writing of the inquiry-based environmental textbooks used in the school. Now, for NBS EduWORLD, the students must be able to understand and address the challenges of 21st century as today's and tomorrow's citizens and promote environmental sustainability. Thus, their school must be an innovation hub for the study, application, and dissemination of nature-based solutions, and a living lab for knowledge exchange that develops partnerships, co-designs, and co-creates nature-based solutions with the society. The schools as NBS Living Labs act as places to apply learning methods that promote the development of green competencies and learning buildings for experimentation and problem solving. Many might wonder why to transform a school into NBS Living Lab. In accelerating innovation, the benefits are many and they are for all. Everyone in the school community in such a process develops key skills, since education is now linked to an open approach and lifelong learning. The learning opportunities are everywhere, available outside the formal education, and the boundaries are becoming now indistinct. So the impact is community-wide, since everyone's benefits. In addition, education is coming at the heart of society. And is becoming, of course, integral to local community development, since open schooling activities for NBS can stimulate real scientific work. They are inspired by local needs and problems, and address NBS challenges, contributing substantially to the EU Green Deal. Research also highlights that when people are close to nature, they improve their physical and mental health, memory, and learning ability, and reduce their stress. So, how now are you achieving this transformation? By implementing, at first, a process that facilitates the transformation of schools to innovative ecosystems, acting as shared sites of learning for which leaders, teachers, students, and the local community share responsibility, over which they share authority, and from which they all benefit through the increase of their community science capital. Additionally, by empowering system-aware people to create a self-sustaining, innovative, and open culture in schools. These are innovative school leaders and teachers, whilst avoiding simply creating interesting but isolated pockets of experimentation. Also, and very important, by following a whole school approach. This approach provides a framework for reorienting and redesigning education, considering the global sustainability challenges, and a framework in which all educational processes that influence learning are addressed. It encompasses pedagogies, vision, planning and governance, active learner and staff participation, involvement of families, management of buildings and resources, and partnerships with local and wider communities. It answers questions like what we learn, how and from whom, as well as where we learn and with whom. Introducing at this point the open schooling context, which is defined by the European Union as the process of engagement and partnership of educational institutions, schools, with families and local communities, to enhance thus teaching and learning. So the school gradually transforms into an NBS Living Lab. What does this practically mean? A school as an NBS Living Lab is both inward and outward looking and open in order to create a healthy habitat that invites and supports NBS and sustainability. As mentioned earlier, it has adopted the concept of open schooling, and it's an agent of community well-being. In a school as an NBS Living Lab, students explore issues relevant not only to themselves, but also to others, and community partners can offer insights, but also benefit from students' instant research and creativity. The students are more rooted in their habitat and gain a sense of place and connectedness. For example, students, parents, and staff, with the support of a local NGO and the local authorities, can grow their food in a community garden or the school garden and use that food in the school canteen or provide it to those in need. The teaching and learning are interdisciplinary and transformative. The learning methods and approaches are collaborative, experiential, inquiry, and problem-based, science-oriented, and relevant to local contexts. Much of the learning does not take place inside the classroom, but also in other spaces inside and outside the school building, as well as the local community, in the marketplace, at the library, the museums, but also through playing, reading, and sports activities. A webinar for the non-formal education and nature-based solution is coming in next week for this. Visiting also a restored wetland or participate in its restoration. A school as an NBS Living Lab acts as a learning building for promoting sustainability. For example, it controls energy and the water usage, waste management, the kind of food and nutrition offered. Also, as mentioned, it operates an organic school garden that produce a significant amount of food consumed in the canteen. Or it reconstructs the schoolyard in a green space with the participation of students and the external stakeholders. In this school, all educators, whatever their discipline or sector of education, are considered as sustainability educators who need to support their learners, their students, in preparing for the green transition. For this reason, they must have the expertise and the continuous training opportunities to feel sufficiently equipped. I will speak for this a little more next. Also, basic pillars of education, such as the design, the content, and the assessment for each topic, are reflected throughout the curriculum, considering the developed competencies. For this, for the development of the competencies, as Nikolaos mentioned, for all learners, this is supported by the Green Comp, the European Sustainability Competence Framework, designed exactly for this, to support education and training programs for lifelong learning. Now, to transform a school into NBS Living Lab, also for this must be developed an action plan. This action plan must describe the strategies and activities the school community needs to design and follow to integrate nature-based solution in its settings regarding each pillar of the whole school that mentioned earlier. Thus, a reflection and working progress for long term is needed on the greening the curriculum and reaching this competence-based curriculum, the vision and the policies of the school, the learning methods and the pedagogies to be followed, the possible interventions inside and outside the school building and how this could be linked to the educational process, which and how different societal actors, the externals, will be involved and how will be engaged, and also the strategy to be followed to the professional development of the staff. The next step after all this is about action and fun. Here you can see only some examples of the work of the NBS EduWORLD project with schools integrating at this phase a nature-based solution in their everyday practices through the holistic approach. We have citizen science projects and scientific and digital monitoring or terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems, study of pollination through hands-on activities, virtual reality and storytelling, and the school garden as an extension, of course, of the class through interdisciplinary activities in biology, informatics, physics, maths, but also the languages. Other activities refer to the use of satellite images to identify areas with increased heat risk for secondary education or air pollution and the proposal of NBS intervention or inspiration by nature to design and propose robotic solutions to address the environmental and climate challenges. Also, the presentation of NBS careers is an important aspect through events, interviews, and podcasts, as well as open schooling collaborative activities. Since the methodology and the activities are addressed to all levels of school education, we have, as you can see, initiatives even from the little students of a kindergarten. Kindergartens have time and creativity and usually are the pioneers of these approaches in a remote rural area. They identify a need of their school. They use Tinkercad to design their proposal. They sent a letter to the mayor proposing the solution to the problem and asking for support. And they finally achieved to install a composter into their schoolyard and integrate it into their everyday lessons. Of course, a big part of the activities referred to the NBS interventions in the schoolyards, such as birds' nests, permeable pavements, tree planting, and sustainable drainage system for watering the plants. I want to highlight at this point that all the interventions are always linked to the educational process of the school in order not to act as isolated projects coming from the school heads or teachers or the local authority that is usually responsible for the maintenance or construction of the buildings, but as work and property of the whole school community. Collaboration with other schools in the making or at any other phase provides extroversion, mutual learning opportunities and growth through Erasmus Plus projects, and the eTuning are also in this framework. So for those interested in doing now the same in their schools, inspiring the whole school community. The NBS EduWORLD project supports them by providing a large repository of resources such as inspirational cases and learning units, guidelines for starters and advanced teachers to introduce NBS, as Nikolaos mentioned, guidelines for expert teachers and school leaders to transform their schools into NBS living labs, but also specific learning activities for hands-on experimentation, as showed from kindergarten to secondary, and also more comprehensive learning scenarios. Also, supporting material to develop their action plan. Additionally, different learning opportunities for teachers like workshops, webinars like this right now, and MOOCs like the one that Nikolaos mentioned, and he started on the 13th of January. Of course, since such an approach as the whole school approach is a long-term process and requires planning, effort, and training, all the educators know this very, very well. NBS EduWORLD also organizes summer schools for principals and teachers to provide them with a more comprehensive support. The next summer school is in July 2025, from 29th of June to 4th of July, with physical presence in Greece to investigate the whole school approach in a more detailed way, understand the Living Lab methodology in the framework of open schooling, explore practical examples, more examples, and inquiry-based activities such as I showed earlier, in the context, of course, for rethinking STEAM education, work on the greening of the curriculum through the integration of nature-based solution, also examine the links between formal and non-formal learning opportunities, and finally develop the school as NBS Living Lab action plan, the plan that every school needs for transform to an NBS Living Lab. In this way, and through participation in the course, principals and teachers can be prepared for the NBS school expertise, also an initiative of the NBS EduWORLD project. In the provided link and the QR code, you can find all the related information for the summer school in July, and of course, register. Thank you very much for listening. I will be at your disposal at the end, and I think we can move to Connor.
Thank you, Saya. Thank you. A lot of wonderful reflections, and hopefully our participants, we do want them to be like, yes, we're going to do this. We're going to do the MOOC. We're going to do the NBS summer school. That's what we're here for, and hopefully they are as inspired as we are.
To provide every support they need.
Exactly. So thank you very much for everything you have shared. And without further ado, Connor, the floor is yours.
Thanks a million, guys, and Tali, great presentation. Nicholas, thanks for having me on. It's a great energy here today, and great to see everybody else. Hello from Ireland. I'm just a little bit behind you in time, so I don't know if I can say good evening quite yet, but just about. So I'm going to be talking about higher ed, a little bit more formal education. I work in Trinity University here in Dublin, looking at how we bring nature into education at all levels, but primarily focusing at that higher level. So if teachers of primary school primary school children, or even kindergarten children, want to learn how to bring nature in, we need to teach the teachers. So that's kind of where this higher ed piece fits, not just for higher ed students itself, for teachers of all ages looking to upskill and bring nature into their classroom. I'm just going to talk a little bit about that. We've already heard what NBS is, but just a reminder that this is the definition from the EU, and it is all of these things simultaneously, right? So it's effectively impacting on the environment, on the community, on the money side of things, and building resilience. So it has to do, NBS solutions have to do all these things, which is actually quite tricky to tick all those boxes. You might be weighted more on one of those factors, but generally we need to be able to link back to all of those things for an NBS to be true. And this is kind of a novel thing, you know, maybe 10 or 15 years ago when people were talking about sustainability, they would have been the long-haired, flower dress wearing people, hippy dippy. And look at how sustainability has come on. You know, it's in the corporate world. You wouldn't even bat an eyelid if somebody in a bank was talking about sustainability now. And that's kind of where this nature piece is, right? So we are at the cusp of something big that's going to come in, and you're going to see nature cropping up in absolutely everything. Part of that is the climate crisis. You know, we all are familiar with kind of carbon footprint, and we want to reduce our carbon footprint. The new thing is, as I'm sure you're all aware, is biodiversity. That's going to be the big issue, and equally as important as reducing our carbon is improving our biodiversity across Europe in particular is where we're focused. So things like funding and policy and all of the different initiatives and projects like we have on NBS EduWorld are all building towards this, and it's building up momentum now where you're seeing more and more projects, the results of which are now, you know, coming to fruition, and then it's trickling down. So you now are seeing jobs in this space. In my university, we have 3 jobs advertised currently for people to work specifically on nature. So these are full-time academic staff, which you just would not have seen that 5 years ago. I'm going to talk a little bit today more in depth on the drivers of all this, some of the things I just covered there at a high level. I'll talk about then our higher ed piece, how we're through this NBS EduWorld project trying to design a few easy to use materials that can actually help people incorporate these nature-based ideas into their day-to-day. So really to make it as easy as possible. We don't want this to be behind a magic curtain complicated stuff. It should be relatively easy. And that's the funny thing about when you're incorporating nature, the nature piece is really simple. It's almost like we've forgotten how to do it. And now we're just trying to bring it back into our more complicated life. So it's kind of a relearning piece, which is quite interesting in how we do that. And then I'll just look towards the future as well. So where are we going to go? What's next? And what's on the road? So just so everyone's clear, I'm talking about higher education. That's what you'd commonly think of somebody going to college. That's their 3rd level piece. You have your entrepreneurs then. So people setting up a business, they want to either design their own nature-based solution or learn about nature-based solutions for any kind of business. That's a different type of education, more of the kind of CPD, career progression development, that kind of thing. It's not necessarily going into a university every day. It's kind of like an online course, maybe like this. And then the vocational side. So this would be more in Ireland, for example, we'd have local authority. So one of the partners on the project is Offaly County Council, a very small county here in Ireland, rural county, and they provide training to the community, teaching people how to develop nature-based solutions or other biodiversity initiatives in their own community, or farmers or other small businesses themselves. So that would be kind of the council side for the vocational development. We look at all different types of approaches. So we're completely agnostic in terms of the approach we choose. I'm a lecturer in college, so I teach undergrad final year business students, so that's what I focus on. We also do postgrad. We've applied our topics to executive education, so more the management level type people in lifelong learning. Some of my students, one guy was 70 years old and he was an Australian guy and he was getting up at 5 a.m. Australian time to attend one of our online courses, and I'd say he was my best student. He was absolutely fantastic. So the lifelong learning piece is really important. And really, now that we know what we're talking about, this project is helping develop, in my case, I lead a work package that's developing 50 learning units. So if you imagine you want to learn something about a nature-based solution, you want to know how the money works behind nature-based solutions, or you want to know, I need a good example on flooding and how we can alleviate flooding using nature. The 50 learning units that we're developing as part of my work package will give you a menu that you can pick and choose and just learn about a one-off topic, and or you can then mix and match these 50 learning units to give yourself more of a course. So For a higher for a third level course, for example, you might have 10 units altogether, and that might be an entire module for a semester. So somebody could take one of these, run with it themselves overnight just to get familiar with the topic, but teachers could also take it into their own curricula. So you could have an engineer, you could have a computer scientist, you could have an English professor or teacher taking this content and merging it into their own content, into their own traditional approaches. And really that word there, stepping stones, sort of summarizes what we're trying to do. These 50 learning units are like a toolkit. You can take the tool you need out at any particular time, and then it's a stepping stone to education. It's just a nudge in the right direction. We're not pretending we have all the answers. And certainly you're going to need to update your toolkit every couple of years. That's one of the great things about this space is it's developing so rapidly. Like, we started this project 2 years ago, and some of the stuff we started with probably is a bit outdated already, I'd say. You know, it's rapidly changing in the best possible way. So you're not wrong in terms of trying to develop these things, but it's a really exciting space. So I touched on this already, and I think, Nicholas, you did a good job on this one already too. But some of the drivers, and we'll talk again about the frameworks, but that EU funding piece and the drive for climate and the push for bringing nature into education can't be overstated at all. Everybody knows the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals developed in 2012 in Rio. They're kind of the drivers on most EU projects. It's kind of the way we all agree, the lens through which we see how we're going to progress as a society and a business and a community. And this is just a different way of picturing them. Normally we see them all as little tiles on a wall, but this wedding cake sort of a diagram highlights that, okay, at the top, all of them are equally important, right? That's the whole idea. But really, without having a functioning water ecosystem, nature, the economy will never function. So you need that balance, and this is why nature is almost where you should have started in the first place. And that's what we're trying to sort of retrofit, if you want, back into the system by bringing nature back in. And that's a real driver there. So increasingly people are aware of these. The decision makers at all levels are aware of these. We probably started with the kids, the likes of Greta Thunberg being aware of this way earlier than a lot of the main decision makers should have been. But that created a wave maybe about 5 years ago, and now it's kind of commonplace to discuss this stuff in both policy and funding. On the market side, there's also a growing demand for these products. So companies and schools and students are all looking either to learn about these things or incorporate nature-based solutions into their own learning. So there's a huge demand for this kind of material. It's not out there. It's not easy to find. I'm going to talk about like where the students are in all this. But one thing that's really important to note is like the students have come. They're demanding that we talk about climate change, do something about climate change. So everybody is almost starting from scratch. So I go off and I bring sustainability into my course. Talia does the same. Nicholas does the same. And you know what? We're all talking about the exact same thing. The students are hearing it 3 times. So the students are sick and tired of the basics. They want more meat. They want the in-depth detail, the cases. Show it to me, demonstrate it to me, show me the bottom line of how you're having impact. So that's where we're at now, and that's what the students want as well. So these students who are coming and are now about 21, 22 that I see, they've had climate and sustainability since they were about 15. They're very well accustomed to it. We have a leaving cert. It's our baccalaureate, the test you do before going into college. They would have even had it as a standalone subject then. So they're much more familiar than I'd be with sustainability issues, and I'd be okay at them, you know. So through this project, we basically did a full review of what's currently on offer. Where are we as a starting point? We wanted to see what sort of courses are being offered at third level across Europe, how the output of, like, we have, I think it's 60 or 70 EU funded projects on nature-based solutions. So what we're doing in NBS EduWORLD is being similar projects are being done all across Europe by all of these different groups of fantastic researchers and companies and teachers. So our research highlighted that there is a lot of material out there. People are working on this, they're plowing it out, they're producing material, but it's not necessarily being incorporated into curriculums. So teachers, if by their own volition, they might have an interest, like I'm sure the audience here today, you want to find out about this stuff and bring it in, but it's unlikely that you're being mandated to do that. It's unlikely from our research that you're being told by school or department management to go and do that yourself. So fair play to you for all being here. The courses this is an issue with nature-based solutions generally, is the language barrier. So it's primarily in Europe anyway, it's nature-based solutions is obviously an English word. It doesn't translate very well. And it's called different things in different countries. So it's quite difficult to find if somebody was using a different word for nature-based solutions. In France, they use various different biology sort of words for this, which mean the same. So it would be tricky to do a proper comparison without more time. Also, what's underdeveloped, I suppose, is the business side of things. So businesses are looking how they can do this, but they don't have any people who are trained because the courses are only coming on stream now. So nobody currently working really has the skills to bring this into companies. So that side of things is lagging behind a little bit. Another driver, you've heard Thalia and Nicholas both mention green comp. And to be honest, when we started this project, I wasn't too familiar with all these frameworks and how they work. So really, it's just a direction from the EU on how you should go about incorporating nature into something. It's a reasonably straightforward document. And we've had similar competencies or frameworks, directives, whatever you want to call it. It's just sort of a policy document that tells you how to do something. And in the past, it was always sustainability. And now it's more vague. It's green. And what you'll see here is, we're adding topics all the time to what we include when we're talking about sustainability or this kind of green side of things. And the new thing that they've only just added to the green comp is promoting nature. And that's kind of where nature-based solutions come in. So it's clearly, it's been a while coming, but now it's even being embedded in these really important policy documents from the EU. So that's a major driver. Once you're included in these topics, there's going to be funding and there's going to be drivers for this kind of research and demand indeed from students, which is critical. Where we're seeing economic activity, which is the side that I mentioned was lagging a little bit, is all over the place. So everywhere that there's nature-based solutions, there are companies, generally SMEs, startups, trying to make a go of it. You can see forestry is the biggest sector there, but water, agriculture, all big as well. So any sort of use you can have for a nature-based solution, there's probably a company trying to make a go of it. I'd say you'll see maybe more of a focus in one or two of those areas sooner rather than later. The challenges we face with actually just, why don't we just go and do it? If it's so simple, why isn't it just happening naturally? So there's a lack of standardized frameworks. It's not easy just to change curricula, particularly that have been, unchanged since certainly I was in college. Cultural barriers and language barriers I've mentioned already. Measuring impact. So we have the triple bottom line for anything to do with sustainability. It's not just looking at the money. We also look at the impact on climate and the impact on the social side. But you have to have the money piece. You absolutely need to be able to prove that your solution is going to wash its face, that it's going to have that positive impact. And that's why the financial constraints come into it. If people are restricted by budget, they're not going to go for a solution that they're not absolutely confident is going to give them payback. And that's why it certainly is taking a little while for nature-based solutions to take off. I know that where we've had success is being able to give concrete examples of where things like using sand dunes and artificial barriers for flooding is a lot cheaper than throwing up a concrete wall, for example. And once you're able to prove that those things work, then local councils, local authorities are able to buy in and pay for those. I've mentioned where the students are now. They're really familiar with sustainability topics. You don't have to absolutely reinvent the wheel, but you don't start from scratch either. So don't be afraid to give them more detail. They're eager for it, and I think they'll thank you for giving them concrete examples with more detail. They need to see cases, though. We need to make this real for people. So even if it's a matter of bringing students on field trips, getting them to touch and see and feel these nature-based solutions, that's how you convince people of their validity. This is my building here. I'm at home at the moment, but this is my school building. And this is just a nice green wall. Obviously, that's a little bit of greenwashing. It's not going to do too much in the middle of Dublin, but it does send the right message in terms of that's what we're driving for. We're doing a lot of work both along the coast and up in the Dublin mountains, which we then bring the students out to see working in real time, which those projects are having a real impact on air quality and flooding as far as we can see. And they really want to see an impact. So the measurement of the impact and indeed proving the business case is really important. Students need to see the interdisciplinary nature of this space. So it doesn't work in the traditional sense of just going off and doing nature-based solutions. You need all aspects of the community to come together. Hands-on learning is great, and impact assessment is really good too. So what we're now working on with these 50 learning units is developing curricula, integrating those real-world examples so that they can be applied and understood, and getting students to engage with nature. We're going to be looking at, from the project, we have these 3 city areas, or partners rather, that we're then going to demonstrate and test these units with. But hopefully sooner rather than later, we'll be able to share those units with everybody. I'm aiming to have them done by the end of February. So I might be able to send a link to Nicholas and he can send it out to everybody too. With that, I'd love if there's any questions, but thank you all very much for attending. It's great to see so many people and exciting times ahead. Cheers.
Thank you, Connor. A lot of reflections in a bigger and wider scale. I really hope that, especially at the last bit when you talked about students and what they really, really want, I think that's a good driving force for what's to follow and what teachers and educators can do to step up. So thank you very much. I will share the presentation again, and we will begin the Q&As. So just a moment. So I do have some questions for you when it comes to our chat. Now's your chance. I call to all of our participants. If you have any question, just write it and we'll make sure to pass it over to our experts. But before we begin, I would like to focus on some questions addressed to both of you. So whoever feels like a risk taker and wants to take the floor once again, Thalia or Connor, please go ahead. These questions come from our MOOC itself. We had a space, we dedicated a space there for participants to share their reflections and questions before the webinar. So one question was about, let's say, how can we, as teachers and educators, promote NBS in education, considering the very strict guidelines that exist in various countries and in various ways regarding the curriculum requirements? Now, I know that Connor, you did mention something like this, but in general, based on your experience, how can teachers and educators that have really tough deadlines and really tough skills that they need to cover by the end of the school year add NBS into education? If you have any idea, please, the floor is yours. Once again, you can unmute yourselves and answer.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Oh yeah, go ahead, Thalia.
Connor, no.
Two confident people on this is the problem.
That was a good question, wasn't it? I'm very happy. Talia, you
Go
can
ahead,
begin,
Talia,
and
please.
then we can move
At
on.
least for the school education, I can say some things. Since the last years, there are many reforms in the curriculum are developing through all the European UE member states. For Greece, for example, we have now for the secondary education the skills labs. It's inside the curriculum some hours that teachers can implement extracurricular activities. So this is an approach. Also, we have in the framework of the reform of the curriculum, the active citizenship framework, in which the sustainable development goals are also integrated in the curriculum. There are also hours for this in the Skills Hub, but also in the primary school for Skills Hub. And then beyond of this, we are usually tell and guide that in every class, in every subject, we have links, we can find links to integrate nature-based solution and sustainability. Even if we are having a class about physics or chemistry or biology, the formal curriculum give us the space and links to bring nature-based solutions.
So it's also very important to highlight this, that this interdisciplinary approach, that's something that you, Connor, also mentioned. I think that is a big concept that teachers and educators could focus on, because through this approach, they can find the links. So they can bring NBS as part of while teaching math or while teaching engineering or any other subject that they might be focusing on.
And also, just to add, to support the reforms of the curriculum of their country in such a way.
Thank you, Thalia. That was something very important to have in mind. And it's also something hopeful, seeing that gradually countries are gradually stepping up. I don't know, Connor, if you had something else to share.
Yeah, to be honest, I had a very similar point to Talia to start. But what I would add is you have to just go for it. And it sometimes when you're talking about frameworks and green comps, and if you're not in that space, I found it really intimidating when I started. So don't be afraid to just have a go. I found the reaction from the students when you talk about this stuff. They all different ages, older people coming back to education, my standard student group coming out of school, they're really engaged with this. So I've only had positive experiences, and if anything, they're pushing me to learn more. The one thing, and I think it was Talia's last point there as well, like you have to adapt it for the local context. There's no real point in me coming in and talking about what's going on in Germany or Greece or all over Europe and then trying to tell my students about it. I have to adapt it to the local context. I have to say, oh well, we know the Dodder and the Liffey are going to converge here in Dublin Bay, and you need to go down to that nitty gritty and bring it home. And the great thing is everyone pretty well knows how their own local ecosystem works. Just off the top of your head, you could probably tell an example of some local issue, and you would probably be able to think of a nature-based solution that might be able to help with that situation, even if there's nothing there. If there is something there, it's fantastic if you're able to bring the students out and let them see it, or tell them. You don't have to organize a field trip if that's difficult. I know the headaches, but if you can tell the students to go and see it themselves, that's a really helpful. We've had great responses just from little things like nature walks. Like as adults, and you're trying to tell people to go and do this stuff, it sounds kind of junior nearly, but they really, even the ones who are sniggering at the start, will come up to you after and thank you. So all I can say is go for it, and try and simplify it. Don't overcomplicate it with all these frameworks and nonsense. Just go back to the basics.
Exactly. just go for it and just be risk takers. And you know your own classes, you can really take it step by step. And the more you practice it, the more you'll become an expert before you know it. Thank you, Connor. Thank you, Taya. I do have more questions. I have at least 3 that are very interesting. But considering the time, I'll just have to ask the participants to stay tuned and follow the MOOC discussions. Hopefully, a lot of those questions will be answered there. And before we close up, I do want to mention that there's going to be a second webinar about bringing NBS into education, but this time it's going to be in non-formal education. You can register by clicking on the icon on the link here or scanning the barcode. It's going to be next Wednesday, not tomorrow, but next week, same time from 5 until 6. And if you participate, you'll see and you'll benefit from reflections from a lot of organizations and their experience on bringing NBS into community projects and so on. Now, if you're not working in the field of non-formal education, you can still register and you can still benefit from what is going to be shared. And by this inspiration, you can create your own approaches. So do take the chance to register. Before we go, I also want to say that if you feel like your school is already in the path of being an NBS expert, you can share your activities with us by clicking on this link here or scanning the barcode. And after fulfilling certain criteria, you will be able to win the NBS School Expertise. That's a way that you can show to the rest of the community, of schools that you're leading high quality STEM and green education. And something last, in case you haven't done already, we've been spamming you in the chat about it. If you haven't done already, please go ahead and provide us with your details and complete this signature list. I don't know if you have any question. If you do, now's your chance. It's already 3 minutes past 6, so I don't see anything happening. There are a lot of things to consider, we've shared a lot of links, a lot of knowledge, and we do hope that you're going to take this all in and create more NBS approaches. I don't know if Taya and Connor, I don't know if you have anything to add before we close this session. If not,
just to thank all of you for being here and listening to us. And just a final thing, the project provide a lot of material, online, on-site, training opportunities, guidelines. You can benefit from all this in your work. Thank you, Nikolaos.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think if you go to NBS EduWORld, you can just see all the various outputs of our project already. So that'll give you a good sort of starting point maybe on this journey. And yeah, from the chat, I've never seen such a lovely, polite group. This is fantastic. I'll definitely come back.
Our participants are the best for sure.
So thank you so much, Nicholas, for hosting. It's been really, really fun.
Thank you all. Thank you for your reflections. Thank you for your experience, and everyone stay tuned. The NBS EduWORLD is going to provide a lot of more insights, and hopefully we'll have more of those events. So once again, thank you. Enjoy your afternoon, and see you soon. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.